2022 is upon us. We're looking at the end of the year. We're looking at the beginning of the year. We're measuring our goals. What did I get done? What didn't I get done? What were my successes? What were some of my failures? Where did I see growth as an author, including some subscription services, and was I able to reduce Amazon as a percentage of my sales? All this and more coming up in episode 228 of the Stark Reflections podcast.
Welcome to the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. There has never been a better time for writers. More information, options, and opportunities are available to you, but navigating these requires insight. Join Mark Leslie Lefebvre as he draws upon more than a quarter century of experience as a writer, a bookseller, and a trusted book industry consultant to explore and reflect on the writing and publishing landscape to help you make informed choices on your writer journey.
Hello, Reflectives, and welcome to episode 228 of the Stark Reflections podcast. This is your host, Mark Leslie Lefebvre, and this is the first episode of 2022. January 2022. This is the fifth season. I started the podcast the very first week of January 2018. I'm trying to do the math in my head. 18, that would be 19, 20, 21. Yeah, 22. Is it the fourth season? I thought it was the fifth season. I gotta do my math. Who knows? I'm not going to stop and do math right now because I don't want to take off my socks and shoes. But I have an episode, as I've often done, the first episode of the year is sort of a retrospective look at my goals, the things I wanted to achieve, the things I didn't achieve, the things I did achieve, and everything in between, just to go to sort of give you a sense of what my writing life is like. And so this is another solo episode. I'm going to be reflecting on the highs and lows of the past year, and hopefully I'm doing this to share with you because I'm sure that you've had great things happen. You've also had things that you expected to happen but didn't happen as well. It's the same thing here. Just want to show you we're all in a similar boat. And that's coming up later in this episode. But first, let's hear a word from this episode's sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Findaway Voices. Now, the Findaway Voices blog recently had this great guest article by M.K. Williams, and it's called What You Can Control, and that is, of course, in relation to your audiobook. And it's a fantastic article, but here are just some of the highlights, sort of the bullet points of which you can control. You control when you publish or don't publish an audiobook. You control when you start promoting your audiobook. You control giving away bonus audio content or not. You control and decide who narrates your audiobook. You control your audiobook cover. You control your price via Findaway Voices at 99% of the platforms out there. You control the retail and library platforms that your audiobook is published to. Can you see, dear listener, that when you use Findaway Voices, you are in control? This is a great article by M.K. Williams on the Findaway Voices blog, and there will be a link to it in the show notes at starkreflections.ca. But if you, dear listener, want to see the different ways that you can control so many aspects of your audiobook publishing empire, look no further than how Findaway Voices can help you with that control. And you can check out Findaway Voices over at starkreflections.ca/Findaway. And now for comments from recent episodes. Edwin Downward on Twitter said, reflecting on the latest Stark Reflections with Mark Leslie and his comment about setting out lots of lightning rods because we creatives never know which will take a strike or even when. This is a comment on episode 225, writing personal experience in fiction with Amy Sands Bronoff. And thank you so much, Edwin, for that comment. This was in reflection to a tip or something I heard Kevin J. Anderson say on a panel that we were on several years ago, and it stuck with me. And it's that, he sets a whole bunch of lightning rods, and not every single one of them is going to strike, but, at least those rods are there for when the lightning strikes. And that's a really important thing as we work hard, and especially at the beginning of the year or the end of the year as we're reflecting on the things we did and didn't do. You got to remember that some of those lightning rods that you planted, dear listener, some of those lightning rods you planted could have been years ago, may strike this year. Something may come to fruition. The key thing is you're not giving up, and you're doing it, and you're trying, and you're experimenting. And that's the key. So thank you so much, Edwin, for bringing that point up. For episode 227, Publishing Trends and Reflections for 2022, Maddie Dalrymple commented on that episode. This is the Reflective Roundtable one, of course. And Maddie was, of course, a guest. As if you're obviously a listener, you'll recognize that. And she said, "This was so much fun. Thank you for the invitation, Mark. And thank you, Sherry, Jeff, and Kathy, for such an enjoyable conversation." And it was indeed an enjoyable conversation. And pay attention, dear listener, because if you're a patron, you're going to see an invite to another one that we're going to be doing later in January. I'm going to record it because I have so many interviews in the can right now, because I've done a couple solo episodes. It'll probably be an extra bonus episode between regular weekly Friday episodes, because that conversation with my listeners, with my patrons, is so fun. I had such a fun time. I'm looking forward to doing it again, and I hope you, dear listener, got some value out of that reflective roundtable. So we'll be continuing to do those. Now, on episode 227, again, the same episode, Connie commented over at starkreflections.ca saying, "In a past podcast, you've talked about getting books into libraries. Do you know where I can get a list of Canadian libraries and their email addresses? Thanks for all your wonderful work. I never miss an episode." Connie, thank you so much. I love hearing that you never miss an episode. That's fantastic, and thank you so much for listening. Thank you for the comment, Connie. Connie, I already responded with the links to your comment. I hope you saw it. If not, since you do listen to every episode, I do want to let you know that there is sort of a link. I don't have a link with all the contact names and emails in it, but I did find a whole bunch of resources, and several of them had been posted on the site, and I added a few more thanks to your awesome question. And the website URL is markleslie.ca/authors, bookstores, libraries. And what I did is when I put out the book, An Author's Guide to Working with Bookstores and Libraries, I knew I had to, there are too many resources that were going to update and things were going to change. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to change this book every month when something changes, or every few months when something changes. But what I will do is I'm going to point to a bunch of resources where you can download like spreadsheets from Rachel Amphlett, who made that available for you, dear listeners, and other resources and links. And as things change, then I can just add the updates there instead of having to redo editions all the time. So again, markleslie.ca/authors, bookstores, libraries, and there, Connie, you'll find a list of different resources. So there's US and Canadian lists of libraries. The challenge with the lists like that is I haven't been able to find, without having to pay for a list, a definitive list of contact names. But what I like about either going to overdrive.com and searching libraries there based on zip code or postal code, or even with the library links that I provided there, you can get the contact information, get to the website, and on the website, it's pretty obviously some of the contact names are given, sometimes they're not, but sometimes you can get email addresses. And I recommend keeping a spreadsheet of your own, maybe a Google sheet, which is available online wherever you're connected to your Google account, or Excel or some other spreadsheet, and then that way you've got it at hand, at the ready for yourself. So thank you, Connie, for that great question, because your question helped other people, I'm sure. And in addition, comments, I want to say this is based on a Twitter exchange, but thanks to Maddie Dalrymple and Tiffany Yates-Martin, who mentioned the book I co-authored with Joanna Penn, the Relaxed Author, on a recent episode of Maddie's own podcast, the Indie Author Podcast. On Twitter, Tiffany, who's at FoxPrintEd, said, love the philosophy Mark and Joanna offer in this book. I bought it as soon as we stopped recording that day, I think, and I just started reading, and it's just a big yes on every page. Thank you so much, Tiffany, for that call out. I'm so glad the book resonated with you, and I'm so glad I'm hearing from so many authors that The Relaxed Author really resonated with them, and that really, really feels good. And I'll get into reasons why when I talk about, sort of my reflective on 2021. But thank you, everyone, for the comments that you left, either on Twitter or over at starkreflections.ca. The comments mean a lot. And speaking of meaning a lot, there's an additional comment that came in from Twitter. Now, I had an awesome patron publicly apologize on Twitter to me for having to cancel their monthly support in January. They're looking to save money. They're basically budgeting, and that was one of the costs they couldn't keep going with. Now, I'm not going to call them out, but wow, what a thoughtful and kind thing to do. And I really, you didn't have to say that, but I want you to know, my friend, and anyone else listening who may have supported the podcast and had to drop or change your support or whatever, that your support is so incredibly greatly appreciated. But you know what else I appreciate? I appreciate that setting and planning budgets is important. And that, yes, even though it's just a few dollars, they all add up. So I 100% respect that people can't always afford things, and that budgets change and situations change. Come on, look at this pandemic the last few years. So I 100% get it. And I still do appreciate your support. And even thinking about me is amazing. So anyone listening who's ever sponsored this podcast on Patreon and had to drop off or reduce your pledge or whatever, please know I understand how things can change. That's fine. I get it. But I do appreciate your support. Even after situations change and you're unable to, I still love the fact that you are a supporter of the podcast, that you took the time and energy to show me that love. I appreciate that. And I'm so honored for you to even consider supporting me. But know this as well, that just listening to this podcast is also a tremendous support to me, as are your comments, your tweets, etc. It means so much to me. Because really what these things do is they remind me, because I'm standing here in a room by myself, in my office, over the garage, standing here looking at my computer screen, microphone in front of me, earphones in my head. I'm by myself. And I'm picturing you. I'm imagining you listening to the podcast, but it is a really lonely thing. I do realize I get power, intrinsic power, from being on stage, talking to a room full of people, seeing their eyes light up when I can spark that inspiration, that creativity. I don't get to see your beautiful faces. I don't get to see the glimmer in your eyes, that idea that you pulled out of the air, not because of me. I said something, but something brilliant in your mind triggered. Seeing that and knowing that happens, that's what feeds me when I'm on stage, when I'm talking in front of people. And so I don't get that when I'm doing the podcast, because again, I'm recording it by myself. You're listening to this potentially by yourself somewhere. It is a very intimate experience, but I don't get to see the reaction. I don't get to see that response. So any of your comments, any of your interactions and sponsorship, any of that stuff really, really feeds my soul. And you have no idea how much I appreciate you, because you're reminding me that I'm not standing here by myself talking, even though right now I am. And right now, when you're listening to this, who knows where I am and what I'm doing, but we are together on this journey. And that connectivity, you have no idea how critically important that is. Maybe you do. Maybe because you're listening. Maybe you go, yeah, I get it. I get it. So shut up and move on, guy. But anyways, I just want to say thank you guys so much. So you can support the podcast, of course, over at patreon.com/StarkReflections, or you can just share this podcast with someone that you think would find value, or just leave a comment, even if it's just a couple words. Does mean I got all choked up for a second. Does mean so much to me. Appreciate that. Okay, so that's it for the comments. Let's get on to my personal update. You know what? Actually, come to think of it, personal update. I'm going to kind of blend my personal update in with the main content because, while I'm talking about the main content, I think personal update's going to it is kind of personal, right? So, let's just blend them all in here. So, let's cue that longer music, shall we? Well, let's start off by looking at the stated goals, I guess, which would have been from that I stated in January 2021. So my stated 2021 goals were, number 1, publish Fear and Longing in Los Angeles. 2, publish Wide for the Win. 3, publish Lover's Moon. 4, Stark Publishing Solutions Unnamed Book for Writers. Number 5, a different Stark Publishing Unnamed Book, 2 for writers. 6, publish Screaming Skulls, nonfiction ghost stories. 7, publish Ghostly Gananoque with Carol Weeks. 8, consider another anthology. 9, expanding Stark Publishing into something bigger, with author A for one book, author B, and author C for another project. And number 10, a special unnamed project. Now let me go back through those one by one and tell you how I did. Number 1, publish Fear and Longing in Los Angeles. Ding, 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 ding. I did it. Yeah, so I did that one, which is good because, I did have most of the book completed by the time I made that goal. That was kind of a good thing to do. But something else happened. So not only a ding, 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 ding on that one, but I realized while I was doing some of the final work on Fear and Longing in Los Angeles that the full story arc I had originally imagined was never going to get done. It was already over 90,000 words. And that's when I reached out to Juan Pedron and I asked him to do a cover for Fright Night's Big City, which kind of completed the overall story arc. Yes, they're both standalones, and yes, you can just read Fear and Longing in Los Angeles and it ends. But there is a larger story arc taking place more in relation to Michael's relationship status. And so that's where Fear and Longing, not only did ding, 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 did I get that done, but I got Fright Night's Big City published just the tail end, came out December 21st, 2021. So I'm hugely proud of that goal and the fact that I added a second book to that. So again, it wasn't part of my top 10, but I got a one book that wasn't even on my radar. Okay, number 2 was publish Wide for the Win. Ding, 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 which I did, but a little bit of a ding on me because I had to push the pub date back. It was originally supposed to come out January 26th. I pushed it back twice. Ended up being published March 16th. So I had Fear and Longing in Los Angeles coming out in February, so that was going through the rewrite, editing process, etc. But honestly, Wide for the Win almost killed me. I really get it. I really understand why Aaron Wright spent 2 years working on this, and we just got to a certain point. I had to make a decision that it was never going to always have everything I wanted, and it was already way bigger than I had envisioned, and I had to just stop and cut things out and just get the darn book out, which I did on March 16th, and I'm very proud I did. I've gotten so much feedback from readers that it's made a difference, and I see it as a really great, not a Bible, but sort of a primer. So if you don't know anything about indie publishing, this is a great place to start. If you do know about Kindle Direct Publishing, but you want to learn about the other places, it's also a great place to start. Of course, I'm biased. I think it's a decent place to start. But so again, that was a huge win for me. We could even call it a wide win, and was a great success. I also used Draft2Digital's platform to publish for most of the platforms except Google, and I did that because I am doing a royalty split on that one. So that was great. Now number 3, I had the goal to publish Lover's Moon, a novelette, which is in my Canadian Werewolf series. It was meant to be the love story, and I had read Gwen Hades' Romancing the Beat and started working on it. Even had worked out about maybe a third of the wonderful online form that she provides to map out your romance book, and that did not happen. I did not get that done. I tried. I worked at it. I think I got about maybe 5,000, 8,000 words in that done, and I kept getting frustrated because I kept getting hung up on the romance. But what I did do is I realized I wasn't going to be able to do it by myself, but I wanted to tell this story. So I reached out to a dear friend of mine, Julie Strauss, who is a brilliant writer and one of the most beautiful book nerds I have ever known in my life. To hear Julie talk about books brightens my heart, brightens my day. I love her podcast, Best Book Ever. Just doesn't matter what book she's talking about or who she's talking to. It's just always a phenomenal conversation, just enriching people's lives with the books that they come into contact with. But I love Julie's writing as well. Loved every single novel of hers. And I thought, well, I love the way she does romance. And I love her female characters. And I wanted somebody who had really good writing chops to write Gail. I love Gail's character so much. I respect her. I had trouble getting in her head because I put Gail up on a pedestal, just like Michael does. And Julie and I had some tete-a-tetes, some meetings, and she's pulled some really amazing things that I didn't even see from this universe. And I'm really, really excited about, we're working on that. This is going to be one of my goals, stated goals for 2022, because the book is up for pre-order and it's coming out in May, so we better get it done. But just the other night, I was going to bed and I was thinking about Lover's Moon and what we had talked about, what we're going to be working on, how we're going to tag team this. I'm going to write Michael's perspective. She's going to write Gail's perspective. We're going to kind of map it out, make sure we have a good feel. And but where does this take the Canadian werewolf universe? Because we're going to introduce some elements that I think are going to be fun. And so as I was going to sleep the other night, I was thinking about it and I went, oh my God, I've got something really cool that can lead into the next book, which I am going to put it on my radar to get done for the end of 2022, because why not? I'm really enjoying the progress that I'm making with Canadian Werewolf. And speaking of that, since I am talking Canadian Werewolf, I do have a chirp deal coming up on the 9th. The 9th of January, I got a chirp deal on a Canadian Werewolf in New York. I'm so excited. I've dropped all the other books in the series. I've dropped their prices as well, so I can do a big push on that. And of course I will, dear listener. Probably by the next episode, the 14th of January, when that comes out, I'll be able to give you an update on how it went. I'm hoping, book bub chirp. Hope it goes well. Okay, so that was number 3, which I did not get done. Number 4, Stark Publishing, Unnamed Book for Writers. Well, I did do that one. Ding, 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 yay. So that was, that ended up being, it was going to be 7 Publishing Pitfalls for Writers. It became Publishing Pitfalls for Writers. And that did come out this year, so that was good. Number 5, Stark Publishing Solutions, another unnamed book for writers. Well, I honestly can't even remember what that was supposed to be. No, I think I have it. It's still, I'm looking over there. It's over on my whiteboard. Yeah, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, maybe that'll happen. But I did not get that done. So two strikes against me, right? Two strikes against me. And then we go to number 6, Publish Screaming Skulls, which is meant to be Haunted Objects, basically, a book. And oh my God, how many years am I going to keep this book on the back burner? I paid for the cover how many years ago? Yeah, I'm going to have to, I did not get that done. I'm going to have to push that back. Okay, so another strike against me. And then the next one, I'm just making notes so you can hear the keyboard here. Publish Ghostly Gananoque with Carol Weeks. Amazing writer. I've co-written fiction with her. She's a brilliant writer. We edited a magazine together way back in the day prior to the internet. We did not get that done. That's mostly my fault. Carol's been working on this, and I have been back-burnering it. And what I think I need to do is let's go pay for a cover. Let's get a few things done there. So that's going to have to go on the back burner again. So that's so that's 4 just to let you know. And I'm already on 7. So I've only gotten 3 out of 4 done. Number 8. Considering another anthology that kind of ties in with an unnamed project. I wasn't sure. That did not happen. So I did not. I think I considered another anthology, but I went, oh, are you kidding me? That is so much work. So much respect for people who put anthologies together, but I did not have it in me. So I just went, that was a big fat. Now, expanding Stark Publishing into something bigger. So that was broken into A, B, and C. So I did do one book with an author. Second book was delayed until 2022. It's coming out later this month. I'll be talking about that in a future episode. And then the third, it's still sort of a work in progress. So it's almost like I get a half point for that because I did get some of it done. So I'm going to give myself a small, but not a big one. And now, special unnamed project. I think I have, of course, mentioned this, but the special unnamed project was setting up. Well, I didn't publish it this year, but I was planning initially publishing it this past October, was the Fan's Guide to Planes, Trains, and Automobiles called The Canadian Mounted. Now, my original idea, and this kind of linked to anthology, was I thought, what if I get a bunch of Canadian writers to write a short story using the title, The Canadian Mounted, any genre except erotica, and I would put that together, and then I would add trivia from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, so that it's obviously a nod to that movie. And just the thought of doing the call for submissions and all of the reading and all of that, and I thought, that's way too much work. And as I started collecting the trivia, of course, I realized I would have enough content on its own without the short story. So I didn't want to confuse it. It's like, what is this, a short fiction or is it trivia? So I decided to abandon the short fiction and just make it a special project just about planes, trains, and automobiles. And I did put that up for pre-order, so that's going to be on my list for 2022. So let's see. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5 strikes out of 10. I can't do the reverse math, so that would be 3.5, I guess, that I got. 3.5 of my goals. So I'm not down on myself for that at all. It's okay to set a bunch of things and realize that it's going to change, just like if you've outlined your book, your novel, and things change along the way. That's okay too. So I'm not going to beat myself up for that. But if there are things you didn't get done, take a look at that. I didn't get done nearly 7 of the 10 things I said I was going to do. Now, of course, I can be proud of myself. I did get some other things done that weren't on the list. Like I said, I did write and release Fright Night's Big City. I also, and this is a huge one, and this means so much to me, is co-authoring The Relaxed Author with Joanna Penn. Now, this was a side effect of releasing Wide for the Win. Jo was interviewing me for her podcast about that, and a jokey comment came up that turned into this project, and I am so glad that in response to some of Jo's listeners, that we both had the same thought and reached out. I think Joanna actually reached out to me first, saying, hey, what do you think about actually doing this book? And again, I had so many projects on the go, and so did she, and we decided to do it, and it was one of the most brilliant decisions I made. Not only because, my God, I love collaborating with Joanna. Just getting to talk to her, it fills my soul and my heart in a really great way. I realized, like, the last time we had gone out for coffee together, we were both in Vegas prior to the pandemic, I think in early 2020, just, getting Starbucks in the morning and just being writers together, just observing people and talking about the things we're excited about is always so rewarding. And so getting to work on this project with her, yeah, of course, there's more stress involved when you're collaborating in that way, but it is honestly an honor that I got to work on a project with her, and I'm so absolutely thrilled with how many authors have reached out to both of us, to either of us, to let us know how much that book has made a difference for them. And I love the fact that the main message of this is just reminding authors they are not alone, and that we all get stressed out, and we all have different ways of dealing with it, and it's okay. So that was a big thing I did not expect to do, but I did. And the lesson here is I had 10 things I thought I would do. This was not one of them. Fright Night's Big City was not one of them. And yet I'm very proud of Fright Night's Big City, and I'm very proud of The Relaxed Author, but they were not on my radar. But I was open, my heart was open, my mind was open to this project when it came along. And it felt good, and it felt right, and I followed my heart, I followed the instinct, and I followed something that I knew would be powerful. And that's really important for you to do. When you're thinking about whether or not to take on a project, look internally. Because if it's a huge success, great, everything's wonderful. If it's not a huge success, was it something you enjoyed doing? Was it something that felt good doing? And at least you will have that to go back on. If you don't have the USA Today best-selling or New York Times best-selling status or any of the giant buckets of money getting poured on your head or any of those things, at least you know you did something. So yes, the Relaxed Author was successful. This was also, the other learning here was learning more about direct sales. Recognizing that, yes, the Relaxed Author did well on the retailers. It trended high. It got the #1 best-selling tag on Amazon for a little while, as sometimes happens. It did well on most of the retailers. It did well in print. But we did really well on direct sales. And that is thanks to Joanna having a huge audience and having been driving direct sales for a long time. I drove all direct sales, like from my website over to hers, because she is the publisher of that book. And so even though we have the shared royalties through Drafted Digital for much of the publishing, we also had some payment splits along the way, which I know it's kind of, I hate making her do the extra work, but a bit of extra work, but I'm not really, it's not like I'm hanging on for every penny that comes from the book. It's like, yeah, we'll get to it when you get to it. I'm not really panicked about that. So it's really good to have that relationship. The other thing as well, Joe and I trust each other 1,000%. I'd take a bullet for her, but we also put a contract into place. We had to put a contract into place to just to make sure. What if things go south? What if we aren't dear friends because of something that happens? What if something happens to me? Something happens to her? What does Jonathan do on her end? What does Liz do on my end? So we have a contract in place. So it's in paper, at least. That friendly, cordial relationship that we have is on paper. So even if things change, it's there. So that's another important learning from that. In terms of some other things that I did, so I talked a lot about on last year's episode when I talked about reflecting. I said, I'm a storyteller. And I've been adapting storytelling in a visual medium. And I started off the year all gung-ho. I'm going to build my YouTube channel. And I didn't really, I have like 600 and, 600 and some subscribers. Now, my channel did grow this year by 212 subscribers, but I didn't really. Once I got a few months into the year, that fizzled out. My videos did receive 81,200 views in 2021 with a watch time of 1.3K hours. Not bad. Most of the videos that got the highest views weren't original content, but I did do, I was proud, I did a song parody, Nano Chameleon, which a Nano Chameleon was discovered, and I did a parody of Karma Chameleon, of course, Boy Mark instead of Boy George. And that got a whopping 834 views. But it was fun. I had a lot of fun writing the song, recording it, and doing the cute little goofy video. That was fun. I did get some interesting growth on TikTok. Now, it's not because of book talk or any of this bullshit that people are trying to claim that, yeah, all you have to do is get on TikTok and you'll sell 1 million books. That's the 1%. Okay, if you're getting into TikTok because you think it's going to be that one magic bullet that's going to sell you books, I'm sorry. That is not the case. It ain't the truth. There's always, as there always is with social media, there's always the possibility. So for me, TikTok is not about selling books. TikTok is about building an audience. Ironically, I just had a comment on one of my dad joke videos saying, hey, which of your books should I listen to first? Sort of evidence that I'm not focused on selling books. Yeah, I do talk about my books every once in a while on TikTok. I'm not focused on selling books there, but I sell books as a side effect, a minor, mild side effect that I'm not counting on. I'm not counting on going viral there in any way, shape, or form. I did have a couple videos go relatively viral. I have had one get over 150,000 views. Now, that's nothing. But for me, that's pretty big. And again, it was lowbrow humor, where I was admittedly making fun of those who do their own research, because I kind of I get sorry, I get snarky when I think about that. Sorry. But really? Okay. We're not going to go there. But that was one that got a lot of attention. Obviously, it got a lot of attention from haters as well. But ironically, just putting something out that's a little bit controversial gets you a little bit more views. I did a great dad joke. Oh, it was a great dad joke that I borrowed, of course, liberated from a Star Trek meme, which was a horse walks into a bar. And it's a Descartes joke. Rene Descartes. I think they're 4 a.m. kind of joke. But it's a two-tiered double punch joke. And that's had over 35,000 views. And that's been kind of cool. I suddenly shot past 1,000 followers. I'm just, a little over 1,900 at the end of December 2021. But for me, TikTok is fun. These are such stressful times. I talked about, mocking people, which, I'm not always proud of that, but I just get so tired and frustrated sometimes. I have no choice other than to mock. But what I really love about TikTok is I love doing videos that can make people laugh. Not laugh at other people, but just laugh. And that's why I like the dad jokes and the play on words and the puns. And I have this little shtick. The tag is Morning Coffee Reflections. I have a coffee. I have my phone sitting there. You can see me sitting at my desk with my keyboard. And then I just share a stupid dad joke and I post it. And on average, I get maybe 200 views. But every once in a while, they take off. But what I love is the fact that, I get the groaners and the stuff like that. It's like, oh my God, this was such a bad joke. But I have so much fun because I know it put a smile on someone's face. And that's why we write. It seems like an aside. I'm talking about TikTok and why I do that. But I love that because I get a reaction out of someone. I sparked an emotional response, which is one of the reasons why I'm a writer. I write these books. I want people to have an emotional response to them. They have an emotional response to a video. And I get that satisfaction. I get that intrinsic reward. No, as a Canadian, I can't even monetize TikTok. I have a thing linked to a charity. I can't even make money off of that. So, again, I'm doing it solely for fun. But that's kind of some of the stuff that I did. So I'll get to my goals for 2022 in a moment, but I am going to share now a little bit of a break. I'll do a little bumper because bumpers are fun, and I'm going to share a little bit about how I did. Now, I don't have all my stats on sales and income for 2021, but I have the majority of them, and I'll talk a little bit about the pros and the challenges and how I'm tracking, etc. And I'll kind of share how I did in 2021. There's some enlightening things that I think you'll find useful. Okay, so in terms of looking at my author earnings, mostly related to books and writing and publishing, this is sort of my breakdown for the year. So one of the great things that happened in the past year was Scribe Count. I cannot recommend Scribe Count enough. Scribe Count is still, it's only about 98% of the way there for me, maybe 95% of the way there, but it's way closer than it's ever been before. One of the challenges I have with Scribe Count, and this is my personal situation, is I make money from traditional publishing. And there's no way for me to add books that aren't already listed in my dashboard at Amazon or Kobo or Draft to Digital or somewhere else. And so I can't go in and add any of the income that I've made off of my traditionally published books. So Scribe Count is kind of useless for all of my writing income. Similarly, the Relaxed Author is in Joanna's dashboard, but it's not showing up in my Draft to Digital dashboard the way that my other books are. So any of the money I made off of the Relaxed Author can't be added because there's no way for me to just add a title. And that is, as of yet, actually, you know what? I haven't checked in the last couple of weeks. Maybe they added it. I do, but I do love Scribe Count. Love them to death. I love their tool, and I love the map that gets pushed out from Scribe Count. But one of the challenges is I couldn't just take the Scribe Count data, which is what I really wanted to do this January, and say, here's 2021 income and sales, because there's so much manual stuff that I had to add into it. So now, just to give you a perspective, I am not a six-figure author. I am a low to mid five-figure author. So I'm not killing it everywhere. I'm working hard, but I'm making decent money, and it's continuing to grow year after year. And I have been doing this for a long, long time. And so I think when it comes to series, I've only really been doing that for about a year now. So that's one of the biggest mistakes I made, was not paying attention to my own advice. But this last year, the growth was pretty solid. So when I look at just sort of when I'm trying to look at just my book sales, and this doesn't fully incorporate all the TradPub stuff, but it's close. Amazon's about 29% of my sales. And I'm pretty proud of that, because that's smaller than it was in the previous year. I got to go back and look at what it was last year, but it's about 29.33% is what I get. And then this is kind of weird. So the next sort of, I've got a whole bunch of different categories. Kobo, Rakuten Kobo is about 5.4%. Apple, 2.76%. Google Books, 0.77%. Barnes & Noble, 0.52%. Direct, and this Direct doesn't include the stuff I did with Joanna Penn, which would make it higher. It was about 3% of my income, so that's pretty exciting that I've gotten that. I did end up doing a few direct sales online, as well as it was at one or two events in person that included some sales, and even people showed up at my door to buy stuff from me as well. And so audiobook sales were about 1.22%. That should change this year with the Chirp deal that I got. So draft to digital, all other sources. So this would be outside of Apple and Barnes & Noble and the major retailers. This is like, I think it's like some of the library sales, etc. 8.95%. So think about that. A lot of the smaller platforms that we don't think about, we don't talk about, are almost 9% of my sales in the past year. Story Bundle was about 6.5% of my income this year, which is kind of cool. And then I've got I think it's other IP sales. So other IP sales is 0.97%. So that's still higher than Google Books, still higher than Barnes & Noble for me. And the other IP are things like Voice Map, where I'm selling those walking tours. And there's a few other IP sales, I believe, I do have speaking separately. So I did a bunch of speaking engagements that were related to my Ghost Walk books. I'm trying to remember. This is where I get confused now, because I did it a few days ago. Did I lump that into other IP sales? No, I didn't, because I made more money than what I'm seeing there. Oh, that would be under speaking about books and writing. So my speaking was 9.75%, and that does include money I earned from doing virtual events, virtual live events related to speaking about my books, and not necessarily the nonfiction for writers, etc., but more about a lot of it was nonfiction ghost stuff. So I think of that as that's me leveraging the IP, right? I'm a storyteller. So those are some of the sales. Now, my sales have increased year over year. I haven't taken a look at the overall growth, but I know I did see growth, and I recognize seeing it on many of the platforms. But here's something interesting that I noticed trending-wise. So I was looking at my Kobo sales. So my Kobo sales, which again are relatively small compared to my overall sales, like compared to my Amazon sales, right? My Kobo sales grew by about 42% between 2020 and 2021. So that's not bad. That's a pretty decent growth. But my Kobo Plus sales, that's their subscription service that you do not have to be exclusive to. It's like Kindle Unlimited, but you don't have to be exclusive. And they expanded that. It was in the Netherlands and Belgium. They expanded it into Canada this year. And towards the end of the year, they expanded it into France and Italy and a whole bunch of other territories. But my Kobo Plus sales, which were teeny, but they grew by 2,535% between 2020 and 2021. So in 2020, just to give you an idea of my sales from Kobo, 2.8% of my Kobo income was Kobo Plus sales in 2020. But in 2022, 8.23% of my income from Kobo was coming from Kobo Plus. What does that tell me if I'm looking at the trends? It tells me that obviously the biggest growth that you're seeing at Kobo is probably in those in those Kobo Plus, in those readers, in that subscription reading model. And I do know, based on sales at places like Scribd, that my sales did go up this year at Scribd, which means that I am starting to earn more and more money from subscription platforms, which means I'm open to where I'm going to earn that additional money. So this is just sort of a look at some of the places where I got my income. I'll try and get together. It might be another week or so before I can get together the proper charts, etc., with the actual breakdown. But I'm pretty pleased. Yes, Amazon is still huge, the largest single source of income for my ebooks specifically, but it's down to that 23%. So I'm pretty pleased that it's not where it was in previous years, which is closer to 40-45%. The diversification of the income is continuing to grow, and I'm really excited about it because, hey, I kind of wrote a book called Wide for the Win. I should kind of live that wide philosophy, shouldn't I? So that's it for sort of the look at that. I'm going to take a little bit of a break here, have a little bumper, and then I'm going to come back with my goals for 2022 so I can not meet them again next year when I do this same episode. Okay, so now for a list. I just basically made some notes because I realized I hadn't really done this. I just thought about it, but I hadn't put it down on paper, so I just put it down on digital paper. Here are my goals for 2022. Yes, more things I won't get done. Number one, in the Canadian Werewolf universe, Lover's Moon, novella, co-authoring that with Julie Strauss. Number two, Canadian Werewolf. So Hex and the City, the next book, a full-length novel in the Canadian Werewolf series. Hope to get out by the end of the year. Number three, again, Canadian Werewolf, short story / novella, Death Knell. I'm going to get that done. Number four, again, Canadian Werewolf, because I'm on a roll. Why not focus on the things that are working well and where I'm earning some decent coin? Canadian Werewolf. Look at doing a box set, ebook box set, since I have a number of books in that series so far. Number five. And in that ebook, I probably need to have some special content available, so I'll have to write something for that. Number five. Again, look at a box set audiobook, because the audiobooks are lower price, so I can do a more expensive one. See how that works. Okay, number six, speaking of audiobooks, I want to do some more short story projects, get more of those out so I can be more flexible and again do box sets, etc. So, and speaking of audiobooks, number seven, I never did get the audiobook for Obsessions done. I've paid the authors, I've paid a bunch of narrators, but I haven't finished. I have a few stories left to get put into audio, and I seriously fell down on that in both 2020 and 2021. I didn't even mention it in my goals. I'm such a loser. So I'll have to get that done because I want to get that finished. I'm so excited because there's some great stories. Number eight, accounting for authors. So this is in my Stark Reflections, Stark Publishing Solutions series. This is a book I'm co-authoring with Deanna Hart, and it's already up for pre-order, so I better damn well get that done. Number nine, the Canadian Mounted, which I talked about, which is the Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And so again, these are some leftovers. I've got number 10, Screaming Skulls. I'm putting it back on the list, baby. Number 11, Ghostly Gananoque. I'm putting that back on the list. And I'm bringing back Weird Waterloo to give it an even 12 goals for this year. And Weird Waterloo is, again, ghost stories of the Waterloo region. So we'll see how I do with those. Well, that's it for episode 228 of the Stark Reflections podcast. I hope you found my reflections on the stuff I did and didn't do in 2021 useful, valuable, hopefully something inspiring, something reflective that you can take away from it. Thank you again so much for listening to the podcast. Having you as a listener, I did say it before and I will say it again. It means so much to me. Thank you for being here. So until next week and next episode, this is Mark Leslie Lefebvre wishing you great writing, a phenomenal start to 2022, and good Stark Reflections.
Thank you for listening to the Stark Reflections podcast. You can find show notes for each episode at starkreflections.ca.
The music for this podcast, Laser Groove, was composed and produced by Kevin MacLeod. Check out more of Kevin's great music at incomptech.com. A horse walks into a bar and orders a pint of beer. The bartender gets a strange look on his face and pours the beer for him, and as he's sliding the beer across the bar, he says, "You've been in here a lot. Do you think you might be an alcoholic?" The horse ponders this, picks up the beer, takes a drink, puts it back down, and then says, "I don't think I am," and then promptly disappears. Oh, you see, that was a joke about René Descartes. You know, the philosopher whose famous line was, "I think, therefore I am." But if I'd mentioned that before the other part of the joke, that would be putting Descartes before the horse.